Out there in peopleforpeople.ning.com land. It's me, Barbara Threecrow, and I'm here today to finish up my book, The Star Children Today, Magic and Phenomenon, and just have a short bit to read here, but I'm also going to do some review on especially some of the character traits of the Star Children so that we can all get a better idea, and the query, that questionnaire to assist in also understanding the characteristics and pattern profiles that define a star child. And I've been also, throughout this time I've been reading this book, I've been making sure that I do mention that all children are significant. Every child and every human being really, I feel, is born with purpose. And the reason I'm focusing on the star children is because it is a phenomena that has appeared throughout history. And I guess the most recent one was, I'm going to say about 20 years ago, because but there was a change, something different happened. And what that difference was that pediatricians and other persons of authority started to notice something unusual about newborns. And so I wrote this book in about 2014, but I've been talking about the star children for many years and writing about them in my other books too. And the star children, some of them, people call them rainbow children or crystal children. That was much later. The information that I got was that these are star children, and they are basically being guided or taught, brought to a secret school, I guess many, by the star beings, which are allies of humanity. And so it's sort of like identifying the particular significance of a group of children that are coming through. Now, not all of these children find their way because, every one of us, when we hit this system, when we were born into this authoritarian system, this controlled system, we were inundated with false information. And certainly in the education system, we do know that it's not about developing a child's true nature. It's about crushing that child's true nature and then reinstating the information and indoctrinations that the system or the authoritarian controlling system wants us to become or think or be or aspire to. So, and of course, a lot of children, not necessarily star children, but a majority of the star children are really, I guess I'd say, become troublemakers or falling through the cracks in the education system. They become the problem child, because they have their instincts, their nature is more powerful, not so easily, I guess, affected. Maybe they're not drinking the fluoride water like we were talking about the other day. A couple of you mentioned how fluoride in the water sort of dumbs you down and makes you unaware, So anyway, I'm here at chapter 20, and I did speak a little bit about this last week, but toward the end here, we're talking about how the education system is dumbing down all children pretty much, and that's part of the agenda. And so this is about student-centered education, or how to really support these STAR children. And certainly it would be important to do this for all children. There are people who are homeschooling their children, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are aware of the STAR children or the significance of them. So the education system, we know that the government system is basically built on eliminating individualism, and it also subjects our children to the systematic brainwashing. So, we do have educators and parents who are recognizing the developing system as archaic and detrimental to children's well-being. And more people, I think, are waking up to that. So there are a few examples, and one I did mention was John Dewey. In 1936, he actually developed the Putney School in southern Vermont. And he, along with other educators, have advocated providing maximum and positive experience for children in order to develop their full potential and creativity. His principles, for instance, outline a democratic education designed to develop complete individuals and conscious citizens that would function within multiple communities, as opposed to the typical system that is promoting children to become unconscious. So what is most encouraging is how these educators recognize the inner spirit of children. And this is a key piece, because in the typical government schools and the controlling system, they're trying to destroy that inner spirit of children. And maybe that's happened to many of us, even those of you listening, that you have struggled to really develop your true nature, or to find out who you even are, why you are here, and so on. And so, there is this happening where there is people now recognizing how significant it is for children to identify their inner spirit, and the importance of teaching them to live up to their finest, fullest potential. So the Putney children in that school are still taught to participate in their own development, and to have freedom to choose to participate in the many topics offered them. So what's the difference here? So they're taught to participate in their own development, and to have the freedom to choose in which of the topics that they want to take part in. Now, that's very different. When you go to school, you're basically, this is what you must do. This is the classes you have to take, and this is what you must do. Very regimented. Nothing about developing your own sense of what might be important for you. So these alternative education systems provide guidance, yes, with a less rigid structure. They do advocate equality. They also offer support to students, as mentors rather than authoritarians. It's the same situation we deal with when we're young. It's like, I'm the authority, you do as I say, and just be quiet. So below, I'm writing here some suggestions that parents and teachers can utilize to help build better relationships, especially concerning the STAR child, but with all children. So it's important to participate together to create an outline and guide that will determine what signifies healthy boundaries, for example. In other words, what is acceptable and what are the responsibilities regarding unacceptable behavior. And today it's sort of like a free-for-all with children. I don't know, there's this new wave, it's been around a few years, about let the child lead, or child leading their own lives, where parents accept whatever that kid does. So if the kid is rude, okay, nobody points out the fact that, hey, you're rude, change your behavior. So it's important to allow children to determine incentives for their efforts. In other words, receive rewards or incentives for their effort to change their behavior. Expressing one's appreciation and that how children are important can make a world of difference to how they feel about themselves. And this is important because what we're talking about in the authoritarian system, it's pretty much, I think, and based on indoctrination of that you don't matter, you're insignificant, and you're less than. And that seems to be across the board, where a child who is, let's say, naturally creative, naturally just awesome and excited and creative and adventurous, fearless, they are pretty much pointed out as a problem child. Just be quiet, shut up, and sit down. So it's about children being able to express their ideas and also their opinions, and to be able to listen to them. Now, I'm not saying you have to follow everything a child says, but it's important to listen and then guide them, basically, how to evaluate these things. It's important to allow students to self-direct their individual education plans. So, for instance, some children would be more inclined toward music or art or even writing, poetry, dance, so beekeeping, gardening, various things like that. And you don't find these in your government schools. The traditional schools basically are this particular theme. I call it the corporate ideology. In other words, get them set up to be enslaved in the corporate world, or the consumer world, or the corporate world. It's about enslavement. So this is important to help your child to develop programs that empower and then validate their abilities. So you have peer counseling, peer mediations, for instance, among children, bully-proofing programs. That's very important. It seems like in the schools, kids are being bullied, and no adult or in authority is doing anything about it. We've seen a rise in this. We've seen children getting bullied, and we've seen also recently a young boy, 13, another classmate who was also 13, punched him so hard he hit his head on a cement corner, I guess, outside the school, and he died. And these are 13-year-olds. And so the bullying has been going on for a while, but nobody's doing anything about this. And it's important to bring the kids into a mediation, about this, so that they can talk to each other, have a dialogue about what this is, why is this happening, and so on. So a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to advise a teacher who asked me for my suggestions regarding the moody disposition of her students, okay? And I suggested that she placed what we call in our tradition a burden basket outside of her classroom. I explained to her that in our tradition, a basket was often placed at the entranceway to a home. And what this did was it reminded visitors to leave their burdens, leave their issues outside. Don't bring them in the house. Don't come into my home and bring your all your stuff and just dump it there. So that's the premise. I guess it's to remind people of a sacred space. Your home is a sacred space, It's your sanctuary, and then you have sometimes people just coming in and dumping their stuff and then leaving. They feel good, but you feel like your house has been loaded up with a bunch of crap. So a burden basket is basically a reminder, okay, that visitors should leave their crap outside. And so I suggested that she write on small pieces of paper different moods or feelings and, like angry, sad, frustration, to write these on different pieces of paper, and that her students, before entering her classroom, they could choose one of those pieces of paper that identified what they were feeling that morning, and then they'd place that into the burden basket on the table outside her door. And she did do that, and she told me later that this had a very positive effect, that how they actually looked forward to getting rid of their burdensome feelings. I mean, this really did something for them, not only to get rid of, but also to identify what they were actually feeling. It was very helpful. So she described how her students were laughing, and they were very lighthearted about which mood they had discarded in that basket. And this is a wonderful tool that helps children to responsibly identify what they are feeling or what is actually bothering them, and the act of picking up the paper and then discarding it. It's kind of empowering and energetically definitely shifts their mood. So this really was very helpful, the burden basket idea. And I don't know, you could put a little basket outside on your step or something on your porch, and ask your visitors, yep, leave your junk, leave all the crap that you're carrying with you in that basket. So this is, I'm here now at the conclusive evidence, chapter 21. So, this is conclusive evidence that I've come to realize about this whole theme here. There may not ever be disclosure or evidence released to the public or any confirmation regarding what has been written within these pages, especially, from religious, political, or scientific perspectives. Therefore, it is up to those who have witnessed magic and the great mystery to uphold the truth of what is evident to you, for instance, and to choose to proceed to live your life from a heart-centered perspective. This timing is never acceptable with that interruptive stuff. So, excuse me, what I'm talking about here is, I think it's a big stretch to say that, like the political, scientific perspectives or those in authority are going to come out and say, there is such a thing as phenomenon, magic, mysterious things, and so on. These are factual, these are true. Certainly not from the religious dogma that states that everything is either, involved with being with the devil, or you're a devil worshiper if you love nature. Stuff like that. So it is important to know that we are not alone in this great universe, and that we have been provided with great powers, wisdom, and knowledge, every one of us. And if we choose, we can learn to utilize this knowledge to awaken the collective consciousness of humanity. So it's about our togetherness, about what we can manifest, all that is necessary to protect and preserve our Mother Earth for the coming generations, because this is a theme or a focus that the Star Children are very emphatic about, talking about, and discussing. As a matter of fact, there are a great percentage of Star Children who speak about being visited by the star beings, and even being taken to see the future of what possibly could happen if humans don't straighten out, I guess you'd say, or if they don't stop the behaviors and the way of the lifestyle that we've been brought to accept, or just disregarding what we're doing, but just doing it because that's what we're told to do, or guided to do, or brainwashed to do, or programmed to do. And that the Star Children, one of their main focuses and what they speak about is the future and our survival, and how it's so important that humans change their way of living. You know, I see for instance, I've talked about this before, but everybody's freaking out about global warming, or I don't even know what they're calling it now. Climate change. I guess it's come to climate change now. They changed their titles here. So the climate change movement, or climate change hysteria, I'm going to call it, is freaking people out. And, you know, they're even getting violent about it. So I think that's kind of part of the agenda, is to terrify people so that they react and that they don't think. Well, they can't think critically anyway, I guess, because everybody's got fluoride in the water, or maybe a major amount of people have fluoride in the water, or they've just been so severely brainwashed to believe the authorities. And now today anybody can be an authority, like that 16-year-old girl, Greta. She's an authority now on what's going on in the world. And she's being, you know, honored like she's a great scientist. But even the great scientists, so-called, don't know what the heck they're talking about in a lot of cases. And I guess we've looked at documents and information about these scientists who claim the warming and the CO2 is the problem. And then you have another faction of scientists who are actually, you know, saying that that is not true. So we see all this back and forth, lies and truths and lies and manipulations. And so where are we today? But what I say is, we have to think about the way we live our lives. Like, let's just say, like, the way we consume product. I mean, we're pushed and brainwashed to consume beyond, you know, what we really truly need. We're like a throwaway society. And then people are maxed out with their charge cards. And so that's not really good. That creates stress and sometimes, in some cases, really severe illnesses. So it's about our manifesting together, if we're interested in preserving this earth we live on, for not only for ourselves, but our children and the coming generations. And like I said, this is a particular focus that Star Children do emphasize. So as I reflect upon recent events around the world, I'm offering insight into what I received from the star beings regarding one in particular. So, I don't know if you all remember April 2010, when the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, or the BP disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, occurred. You guys remember that? That was really very disturbing, but it's just one of many. We had the Exxon oil spill, that was prior to this. So I understand that the Exxon oil spill is still polluted the waters up there. And also I also just found out that actually the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico was never really plugged up. There was a big hole. They blew up, drilled into the core beneath the ocean. They got a bright idea, whomever they are, I don't know, it doesn't matter. They got a brilliant, bright idea to dig a core down through the bottom of the ocean, in one of the deepest places in the ocean, for oil, they said, right? That's what happened. Now I understand, I just found out recently, that in fact they never plugged up that hole, so what was in the earth there is still spewing out into the oceans. So today it remains the largest accidental marine oil spill in our history. That was the Deepwater Horizon, or BP disaster. And then, you guys, I don't know if you remember, then they decided to spray some toxic chemical on the water to disperse the oil. That was another brilliant idea, right? Oh, there she is. My sis is here. She's appeared. So, So we have these disasters and going, but here's what happened to me. So like most people watching the event unfold on TV, I was alarmed, and I really was deeply sad, and my initial feeling that the authorities at BP were attempting to cover up the seriousness of the spill actually was later found out to be true, as if you were following this, you found that out. And there were deaths on that, of some men too, on that rig, oil drilling rig. And they did try to cover it up, the seriousness of what was going on. And during that time, I determined to journey to the site of the explosion by utilizing a telepathic process that today is termed remote viewing. And some of you may have heard about remote viewing, but I determined to utilize my own tools, which is a process that I have done, I guess, forever. I just learned this. It just came to me. So this would allow me to see what was actually happening on the ocean floor beneath the oil rig. And it's a process of sitting in a quiet state and calming your mind, quieting everything around you, and then entering into a very deep, quiet, focused state. And my intention was to travel energetically, or out of body, you could say. And what I saw was very alarming and much worse than was indicated. My initial reaction was to seek help, actually, from the star beings, which I have called upon throughout my life and been in relationship with them, and I knew that they had the ability to close this deep gash in the ocean floor, which was becoming increasingly larger. And I have to say that this stuff was spewing out from this deep hole that they had drilled into the core of the earth. And I'm looking at a recent bit of information about the two different types of black goo, and this is probably about for another show, but I will just try to pull it up a little bit in my mind. So, excuse me, if any of you have ever heard of the black goo, it's quite serious stuff, and it's supposedly, from what I understand with recent information, it's supposedly an intelligence, or it has an intelligence. It's alien. It's an entity, okay, and it's very dangerous. Some people have had experiences with this, and as I said, I'm only pulling up just a little bit of information on this. Yeah, podcast about the black goo. Okay, yes, that would be good. And then there's another black substance, I guess we could call it goo as well, that is natural. Okay, it's actually natural from the earth. It is not demonic. It's not alien. It is natural to the Mother Earth. And so I just wanted to give that little bit of information here. So again, my first reaction was to get help from the star beings. Immediately, when I put out that information, that request, I received their response. But they informed me that although they were concerned for the earth, they would not fix this man-made problem. Now, this is very interesting because I have said this many times, that we humans are here to fix these problems, or to prevent these problems, or to not participate in them to begin with. That the allies of humanity, in this case the star beings, or no one, is coming to save the day. Right? So they said that this disaster was a warning to alert us to the dangers of continuing to drill for oil. And I think we've had numerous warnings, certainly, about what big corporations are doing. Lots of warnings, like fracking. The warnings are enormous warnings there. People turning on their faucets and the water coming out, and they could put a match to it and it catches on fire. So that's a big warning, isn't it? And illnesses, the increase and rise in certain illnesses, unknown illnesses, cancers that we've never even heard of. So we're very aware of big warnings that we are messing up things big time. Well, let me rephrase this. excuse me, I say we are messing up things big time. Well, let's say we are all participating on some level, but basically it's the authoritarian system, the agenda, the people who have the agenda to mess things up. But we are basically allowing that. They're the ones who set up this agenda to mess things up, to mess this beautiful earth up, and to sicken us in any way they possibly can. And, of course, we are participating in that. So that is why I say we, including we, are messing things up. So I was told that it was now up to us, that humanity needed to become empowered. Humanity needed to learn to activate the ancient knowledge of and uses of telekinetic power, and how the power of prayer, for instance, visualization, and focused healing energy were ways that our ancestors energetically changed these types of situations. So this is ancient knowledge. It has been utilized for the preservation of the Earth's resources, for thousands of years. And yet it has remained a hidden factor in the lives of various aboriginals throughout the world. Some have continued to employ their ancestors' teachings for the good of the whole. At this time, there are others who are choosing to join them and are seeking to reestablish an understanding of the powers that we have, the power of prayer, for instance, and ceremony. Today, and with conscious intent, there are many who are taking responsibility to manifest these sacred tools in order to harmonize the sacred web, to elevate the Earth's frequencies. And again, we have to remember the talking about frequencies and energies, because everything is an energy and everything is a frequency, and originally everything was in harmony and balance with the frequencies, and now things have been shifted and corrupted. So these and also the star children have begun to energetically communicate into the consciousness of the greater population, and to activate an awakening of humans' fundamental nature. The idea is to begin to shift what has been out of balance for centuries. They are diligently working toward aligning and rebalancing the energies of the divine matrix, the dark and the light, positive and negative, as is according to the blueprint of the superior intelligence. We all must awaken. We all must take that responsibility. Change has to take place, especially the corporate ideology and those who seem to be without morals and who are caught in the grip of greed. So, you say, well, how do we change this corporate ideology, or even those who have no morals, who are caught, who have sold their souls, who are caught with that grip of evil and greed? I feel that it's ourselves that we have to change. We have to come to terms with this, with the choices that we make and how we are impacting, how we are affecting the whole of everything by what we do, even how we speak. The power of words is undeniable, and we have to include emotions. Emotions are powerful. Words are powerful. Even our thought process is powerful. It is a frequency. These are energies. So this is about our gaining enlightenment and returning to utilize certain of the wisdoms and ancient knowledge that we were all given, that is still available for us. And this is where we find ourselves today. So, so I found out, like I said, I went to that place. I went out of body. I traveled consciously to beneath the ocean into that disaster of the deep water horizon, and did see that they were lying to us about what was really going on there. Now, recently, I kind of have forgotten about that deep. It was 2010 when this happened, and certainly there have been, many other things, many other events that have risen and, come to the forefront in our life experience that we are focusing on and that we are distracted by, of course. But I had forgotten about the Deepwater Horizon, but recently something came across my, I guess my computer upon that. And I didn't know this. You may not know it. But apparently they never plugged up that hole that they drilled down into the core of the earth. I don't know what they were looking for. There's plenty of places where you can get oil, on the land without going into the ocean. It's just sort of like dangerous territory. There's bound to be an accident, as we have seen. There are so many oil spills, so many accidents. Unfortunately, on land as well as in the ocean. If it happens on land, it makes its way, I guess you'd say, to the ocean eventually. Anyway, so that was the last chapter, Conclusive Evidence, chapter 21, and I'm going to do a review here. I want you to just listen to this. These are character traits. If you're interested, I don't know. Some of you guys might be star children. You may have a grandchild, or even your own child might be a star child. And not all star children exhibit the character traits that I'm listing here, but a greater percentage do demonstrate an innate connection, let's say, to the natural world, and they do know the importance of their fulfilling their own gifts and abilities that they were born with. And this is a key piece for all of us, I'm going to say. It's sort of like, what were the gifts that you were given? What were you born with? What did the Great Spirit gift you with? What are the things that, I guess you want to, I say, make your heart spirit sing. I don't know. I think it was Joseph Campbell that said, follow your bliss. I think we're all supposed to be following our bliss. Okay, but let's make sure that's not in a negative, okay, because many people's perceptions of what bliss is could, I don't know, maybe not be so good, but always it's about doing the right thing, I guess. Consciously aware of what you are doing. Are you living your life to your fullest potential? What is that potential? What do you long for? What had you longed for, perhaps, that as a younger person, what really drew you, and then suddenly someone said, no, you can't do that. There's no money in that. Like you want to be a painter, or you want to be a dancer, or, something that doesn't fit the system's program. And somebody may have said to you, no, that has no value, or no, you should be this, or you should be that, to make us proud of you, right? Again, it's like, it's about you. It's about your own spirit, the soul within you that has a dream, vision, or desire, purpose for being here in this lifetime, this timeline now, this time, right here now. So if you're not following, and utilizing the gifts that you were given, I don't know. You might be feeling kind of miserable. I don't know. Maybe you feel unhappy. Maybe you feel unfulfilled, because I know a lot of people experience that. A lot of people come to me and they say, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know who I am, and I don't know my purpose. Why am I here, I mean, that's a great percentage of people, too. But they have a job. They might have a relationship. They might have a family. But there's something missing. They experience some deep longing for something, and they don't even know what it is, but definitely they feel a missing something in their life. And meanwhile, they're striving and, clawing their way here and there. They're striving to find the happiness. They're striving and struggling and determined to find this happiness that they think is going to be, found or realized if they get a bigger car, or if they have a different partner, stuff like that. To me, it's sort of like, I experienced that missing part for a long time in a different period of my life. This kind of like a searching, a longing for something. And I found out, of course, what that is that is to know myself. It is to come to know me, my significance, that I'm significant, that I have a purpose, that I'm really important here. And I'm not saying that, from an arrogant position. I'm saying it from a very humble place. And I say that to every one of you, that every one of you here, on the earth right now, are significant and important, and you fit along with everyone else. You are a big piece of this puzzle. Just saying. So, most star children do know about nature's laws regarding cause and effect, for instance, which describes the importance of our understanding that what we believe and think about and focus upon does manifest. Yeah, it does manifest. That makes sense, I really think. What you focus on, what you believe and think about will manifest. So many star children will have learned to use these methods for the good, although some may be prevented from using this ancient knowledge, and their gifts may remain unknown to them. Maybe that's happened to you because you've been sidetracked by somebody. Something put you on the wrong track. Something sidetracked you. I don't know. So at this time of conscious evolution, which, by the way, that's what we're supposed to be doing, evolving consciously. Okay, and the age of enlightenment, by the way, this is the age of enlightenment, the age of Aquarius. Yeah, that's where we are, age of enlightenment. Yeah. The Star Children message speaks of the importance that we develop spiritually, that we learn to utilize the art of manifesting to bring about a better world. And these are the powers that we have. Ancient knowledge, the art of manifesting is nothing new. It is an ancient tool. And definitely I think we've all kind of come to the realization, we've spoken about this so many times, the spiritual piece here, our spiritual connectedness, our foundation of that connectedness in a spiritual way is key to everything. It's sort of like those people that are searching, looking, longing, buying stuff, consuming and, getting divorced and marrying or getting another relationship or having affairs. They're looking and searching for peace and happiness. They're looking for that happiness piece. But they're not going to get it from all this consumerism or having affairs or doing whatever they're doing. That's not going to give them that internal peace and that internal happiness, that joy. What is going to bring that to you is your connectedness to Source, the spiritual aspect of everything, because you are in that ultimately. Basically, we are beings, spiritual beings. We are beings of nature as well. We are one with. The Creator's law of one means we are one with all of creation. But people live outside of that. They're outside of that frequency, that energy. They're lost outside there somewhere, consuming themselves to death. Being angry, being judgmental. These are the choices that people are making. Nobody's to blame but themselves. Like, we create our own reality. It's simple. So majority of star children do use their natural psychic abilities, and some are becoming the teachers or healers, and you can identify them that way. So here's some character traits. Just pay attention to these. Maybe you can identify yourself here with some of these traits. A star child may know your intentions before you know them. So what does that say? Okay, it's sort of like mind reading. I guess you could say you have a tool or an ability to read people's minds, or you have a sensitivity to a different energy. In other words, like, again, I could say to discern. The discernment tool is so vital, but people have been disconnected from this discernment tool deliberately, I feel. So we don't have that gift or that ability to discern, for instance, truth from lies. You could sit there in front of the TV and watch someone from, a politician or anyone, a priest, mainstream media, and sit there and listen to what they're saying, and you have no discernment about what they're saying. You just listen, you absorb it, and you believe it. So there's no activation here of the discernment tool. You need to be able to discern truth from lie. Okay, so if you're listening to someone speaking, for instance, and they're talking to you, telling you something, their story or whatever it is, and you don't have discernment, you can't identify whether they are pulling your leg or lying to you or leading you in a direction that would not be good. So a star child may know your intention before you know them. So they're reading you. They have the ability, psychic ability, to see beyond what you think you know. So they may know your intentions before you do. So they also see hidden agendas. They do. They sense these hidden agendas, and they know when someone is not speaking the truth. It's kind of a interesting thing. When you are a child and you're in the adult world, with adults around you, and they're talking about things, but yet you know that they're lying, or you know what they're really thinking, that's a really heavy-duty experience, but that was my experience. It kind of makes you a little crazy as a child, because you think, wait a second, I'm hearing this, what's in that person's head, but that's not what they're saying. They're saying something entirely different, right? So, star children have that ability. They are also capable of reading others' energy fields or even their auras. They are often the petty tyrants. In other words, this is one of my favorite terms, petty tyrant. And when I start reading Mending the Hoop next Tuesday, by the way, I will have a chapter on the petty tyrants. So oftentimes these star children are petty tyrants. What they're doing is now purposefully pushing others' buttons in an attempt to wake them up. That's one aspect of a petty tyrant. That's not always the case, because in fact we are petty tyrants for each other, and we may not even know it. And speaking about petty tyrants, Gaz, now I'm not saying you're a petty tyrant, I'm just speaking to you about this because we had a conversation about earlier, and it was about how someone's pushing somebody's buttons, right? In other words, annoying them. Now, the person isn't deliberately doing that. It's just that's their nature, is to be that, person who bothers you or pushes your buttons by the way they are, how they're speaking, what they're speaking about, how they're behaving. And they're just going on because that's who they are in that moment. They're not saying, well, I'm going to push your buttons, but they are pushing your buttons. And so what is that? What does that mean? And this is interesting because having that conversation earlier, now I'm realizing that, yes, the petty tyrant in our lives is a teacher. Now, wrap your mind around that. No, it's not a big red button. I don't know. It could be red. I guess you get red in the face or enraged. So the petty tyrant is a teacher. In other words, their behavior knocks you out of your center. Okay, you get that? Their behavior drives you to act like a crazy person. Yeah? Their behavior, the petty tyrant's behavior pushes you to the max where you become the stupid person. You become the crazy person. And then they look at you like, yeah, you're crazy, but meanwhile, you're blaming them. No, you said this or you did that. Okay, so you can go round and round, and I call it the dance with the petty tyrant. You're dancing with your petty tyrant. So it's a person who pushes your buttons and drives you crazy. It's a person whose behavior pushes your buttons and you then react like a nutcase. It's a person who does whatever they're doing, okay, happens to push your button where you get knocked out of your power, which is your center. Being in your center is your power. So it's a person, a petty tyrant is the one who basically you give over your power to by losing it and acting like a nut. That's what a petty tyrant is. But we do that. We all play that role, that petty tyrant. You know, your petty tyrant could be your mother, your father, the guy at the gas station, the guy in the car, slowing down in front of you. The idea here is to understand what it is to be in your center, to be in that still point. It's powerful. That's where you have the power and ability, okay, to discern, to be in that state of awareness, complete awareness, and being alert to everything around you. It is an empowering place. You're not running around in circles. You're not reacting. You're not crazy. You're not off track, and so on. So being in your center, I guess you'd say we all want to come to be able to be in center, which is the still point. I do speak about that in Mending the Hoop as well. How important it is to be in the still point, because the idea, the theory about chaos is that there is a still point within chaos. And right now, chaos, maximum chaos, is roiling around us like we all feel like we're in a nut house. That's chaos. But if you are in your still point, in that center of calmness, the chaos does not affect you. Okay, you are not reactive. You are not dropping into hopelessness. You're not enraged. You're not lost. You are in this most extraordinary place of peace. It's a glorious place to be. And you are empowered. You can determine basically clarity, to have clear thinking, critical thinking. So the petty tyrant is the one who knocks us about right now, if you allow it. So the children, these star children, have an integrated desire to help humanity, also to help them change their behaviors, to come to realize, okay, everybody's complaining, everybody's screaming, everybody's blaming, but really, what are we doing? How are we participating in the mess? Because people can't accept the fact that they are participating in the mess. They just are blaming everybody else, screaming at everybody else, right? Yeah. So, all right. They are thought-provoking. The star children will stimulate and challenge you to think of alternative possibilities and other perspectives. And is anybody thinking of alternative possibilities these days, or are they just reactive and going full muck into insanity? So, the star children are considered wise, like old souls. They're uniquely oriented toward a new set of beliefs regarding, for instance, the environment. Also, its components as relating and affecting all. In other words, what we talk about, that we are part of this environment. We are here, and we are in relationship, and we are affecting all and are being affected as well by all. Just saying. So the star children are insightful. Their ability to see through people often is very unsettling. They have acute mental and emotional sensibility to others' agenda. In other words, they have this sensory ability to know, the lies that people are speaking. And this is an amazing gift when you have this. So, like when you sit in front of the mainstream media and you hear them spewing out things, you don't run up and go out and go out in the street screaming and believing them. You have the ability to discern facts from lies. Now, this is a physical character trait, or one of the physical character traits, and it's called compelling eyes. Okay. that seem to see through you or seem to see you completely and fully. People experience being with a star child like they feel, not only drawn to them, but they feel like this child, this person, sees them, their true essence. So the compelling eye thing is one of the traits that they speak about. And here's another trait that I think is very important. They are right-brained, or let's say right-left balanced brain. In other words, they learn through visual stimulation, physical and spatial orientation. And that's very important, to know about these children or even yourself. In other words, you might have difficulty with the standard learning or teaching, the way the government schools teach you, the education system doesn't fit very well with star children. And star children are non-conforming. Are you non-conforming out there? Any of you guys? I think so. I think I know some people out there. Star children often have difficulty within the standard educational, religious, and the political systems. In other words, you're adverse to it, and you know something is not right. You're just there. Nope, something's very wrong here. And most are typically right-brained, as I said, and they absorb and learn better through teaching methods that utilize visual, creative, tactile, and artistic methods. So, let me see what else I have here, because we're getting close to the top of the hour. So, here's another character trait. Possibly a greater percentage of star children have Rh negative blood type. And also, this is significant. About the age of 4 or 5, star children might describe that they're having an encounter or interaction with something else, like an elf or a fairy or an unusual being, something non-ordinary. And they also may have had an encounter with a UFO or some other type of phenomenon that they express. And I know also a lot of these star children had, during their early years, some major event, which often is in the arena of an illness or even a near-death experience. And this is also noted with these children. So, that's pretty much where I'm going to end here. The ending of this book basically is my experience. Is that the night I finished this book, I was listening to the sweet mystical sounds and sacred chants of the night singers, the katydids and the crickets, and the high-pitched singing rattles of those unseen who continue throughout the night until early dawn. The trees sway, dancing ever so lightly, and leaves were glistening as the moonlight drifts. And now there comes yet another melody, and that melody is the Mother Earth's sacred song, and all is embraced as the Mother soothes and nurtures the forest dwellers, the trees, the winds, and the mists that settle upon the mountain. These mountains are old and they are grand, and they welcome the embrace of the Mother, as was their agreement since the beginning of time. They now release and thrust her sweet love song upwards until at last it reaches the stars. On earth, the atmosphere is ancient, primal voices thrumming and coursing around me and along the divine matrix. The Mother listens. She offers a loving response to the night singers. The sacred atmosphere reverberates throughout the cosmic circle. And the sacred dance continues on and on throughout the universal web. All is nurtured as we dance the circle and we sing the sacred songs together. And that's the end of the Star Children today, Magic and Phenomena. I hope you guys, I hope you appreciated this book, and I really enjoyed reading it and having conversation and adding some extra things, different information. Yes, and my new book, Mending the Hoop, starts next Tuesday. And that was my first book. And it's really quite a journey. So, thank you all. Thank you for being here. Coming up next is Stone Hobbit. And stay tuned for her. She always has great things to share with you. And thanks everybody, Angeline, Darby, Gaz, Batty, Rob, and the Myth of Unity, Troy, and V, and Yolintz, and Huge. You guys are great. Great for being here with me. Pilamaya Doksha.
Thank you.